I have a question based on exactly this, the economy and all that. 'Cause it's one of the very first things a user will see if they're clicking through the top user buttons. One of them is economy, and then you can just let your jaw drop, looking at every different factory, all the different farms, everything is implemented. It's very deep. But then when I look at the options the player has to interact with this, I don't see much. Basically, the way I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I think the user interacts with the economy is basically just through the budget screen. They can set different tariff levels or investment levels. It's like maybe 6 or 7 sliders. And there's no direct interaction, as far as I can tell, with the underlying economy, which apparently is very deep, though. And if I compared this to maybe another game like Victoria 2, I'm not sure if you guys have played, but it's got this very deep system, but you actually kind of interact with it, or it seems more important to the player to manage their factories and all that. So what is the economy doing in this game? Is it essentially just a really, really complicated budget simulator? Or is there something that the player, how much attention should the player be paying to where the farms are, where the factories are? What's the expected feedback for the player and player goals with the economy?
Well, the main goal here is that to simulate the economic part of the war, but just the player. Yes, you're right. He's only able to move budget sliders, to increase subsidies, for example, and research policies and all that stuff drives the economy into a certain direction. We had the feeling that a lot of players, and I've learned from the 7 Years' War, didn't want to dive that deep into the economy system because as you've said, it's very complex. So the player should see the effect. If, for example, if some IRPs are raided, if ports are blocked, if weapon imports don't come in anymore. So that's the final effect the player should see. But I'm not sure if we should make build 'em up strategy game here. As I've said, we were close to it so that the player could, like he can do with supply depots, for example, could place industry somewhere, or at least create areas where corporates may settle down. That was already planned, but I somehow had a feeling the players want to focus more on the military aspects of this game. But I don't rule out that we maybe add similar topics, options a bit later. For example, we have buildings in the game like hospitals that are currently not used. So maybe we give the player the opportunity to place it somewhere, or at least allow placement somewhere. So yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the actual problem here is not that it would not work, but because it's a very slow process, because in this game you basically have to plan ahead. So, for example, if you go against the southern ports and start blockading, it will not have effect the next day or the next week or even the next month, but maybe during the third year in the war, you will start seeing the shortage of goods, weapons, material. And of course, there's the problem at this point that most of the time you will not reach that time during the campaign, because players move a lot quicker than the commanders did historically. So that's one of the things we need to balance. So when we talk about campaign balancing, it's things like this, and not, for example, balancing the power balance between south and north. It's more about balancing that it would sort of force player to consider his moves a bit more carefully. So, for example, a bad operation or campaign could backfire more.
Originally, We wanted to add a road to war scenario, for example, which could have started in 1850. Oh. And there the economic aspects would have been much larger than they are now, as Ilya has described. So yeah, that was probably one of the reasons why we said, okay, that has not that top priority for us anymore.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, if I was to play devil's advocate, so first of all, I should say I love having seen all the economy in there. Like a person like myself who likes playing Victoria 2 or some of those other more economy-focused war games, I like those a lot. So I completely applaud the fact that they're there. But to play devil's advocate, somebody might, I mean, you were talking about how CPUs slow down and all the calculations, and I'm just imagining the immensity of the matrix that has all these different locations producing for the economy. So to play devil's advocate, would it potentially, if the economy is right now, is there a possibility to even just reduce the economy to get CPU increase, or is that not bogged down anyway?
I think it's certainly one possible solution, but we can also slow down the rhythm of calculation. I think the biggest performance killer are the units. So we do simulate hundreds and even thousands of them, and also all the aspects, all the supply topics, moral calculations, commander improvements, experience, training, fatigue, and all that kind of stuff. So that takes a lot of performance, but we will improve that.